And on this evening's program, we have the University of Guyana, and we have three representatives from that institution. Dr. Melissa Eiffel representing she's the president of the University of Guyana Senior Staff Association. We also have Mr. Bruce Haynes, president of the University of Guyana Workers Union, and Dr. Thomas Singh, executive member of the University of Guyana Senior Staff Association, and we'll be talking about the current issues related to the University of Guyana and the negotiations for better wages and working conditions. Welcome to the program,
Thank you. Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen. The University of Guyana, once again, we have, well, it's symptomatic of all of the institutions that are managed by the government, where people are concerned about their livelihood, the conditions of work and so on. But the University of Guyana is a special place because that is where we're supposed to groom the people who are supposed to lead the society, the intellectuals, the people who should be working on the progress of the country, the development, and all of that. And you are having a whole lot of problems. This is not the first time you've been here. But what are the current issues? What is the current state of affairs at the University of Guyana? Dr. Eiffel, you want to say?
Thank you very much, Deon. Thank you for having us on the program. And good evening to all your listeners. Currently, we are engaged in industrial action at the University of Guyana. We have been for the past, all of last week. This action stemmed from two main sources. One was the attempt on the part of the Vice Chancellor to impose a new workload policy without any staff and or without negotiating with the unions. At a certain point, as it relates to negotiating with the unions as well, he had indicated that he would not be negotiating. He and along with the council would not be negotiating with the University of Guyana Senior Staff Association. And of course, they have been negotiating with us for years, decades in fact. And when in fact our non-recognition from the trade union and certification board was a direct consequence of the actions of the University of Guyana in submitting incorrect data. And secondly, and more importantly, we had been negotiating with the University of Guyana since 2012, since March, since probably February of 2012, for a better wage package, better benefits package, and it seemed clear that the university over the years had attempted to stall the process, derail the process, and the situation, tipped over when instruction was given from the University of Guyana Council that a negotiation meeting that was scheduled for the 15th of January should be cancelled until further notice. And staff said that was enough. We had been enduring abominable circumstances, in all respects. When you look at the classrooms, when you look at the facilities that are given to staff to use to work, to function, multimedia facilities for proper instruction, not even pen, paper, ink, no computer facilities for staff to use. We have been pressing on these issues for a while, but it reached a point where staff said enough, and some change to this particular point.
Dr. Singh, as another member of the UGSSA, Doctor, I feel would have pointed out some concerns. I know this is not the first time that you have been pressing. You said since 2012, I know you would have been here before. Uh, what is not changing in terms of the development of the university in relation to staff, conditions, and so on?
Thank you, Deon. What is not changing would be the things that make for a particular kind of learning environment. Indeed, there's been an injection of funds into the university, something to the tune of $270 million from the increased tuition fees. But this is not translated into anything that either the students or we teach in the classrooms can point to and see there has been an improvement in the learning, teaching, learning environment. The whiteboards are dirty. It is impossible to write on them. But thankfully, we don't have markers to write on them anyway. So those things have not changed, but there is something beyond that has changed, and it is that whereas we've always had a governance structure that does not work for high level education, high level management, a governance structure in which political considerations dominate. This time around, what's changed is that we have a management structure that's been characterized by remarkable management failures. How could it be that the university $170 million more from students and be so insensitive to the needs of students and staff. So contemptuous of us. Management has failed. Higher level management has failed because there's been a serious breakdown in trust. We no longer have any confidence in anything that emanates from the vice chancellor or the senior management. So there have been those changes that have contributed to the tipping point that Melissa has pointed to.
And the University of Guyana Workers Union.
Alright, thank you. Deon, hello to all the listeners out there. When you want to look at the structure of the university, you find there those who are not so high profile as academics and senior management. Most are not aware of them. Most will not pay much attention to them, but they are very critical to the whole apparatus and its smooth running. Matter of fact, they are the ones who were the very early. They brave bad weather. They brave people on the road might probably want to take very little that they have. They have transportation challenges just to get there on time. And generally, they are giving the equipment and the things that are necessary for them to really function the way they should. They have done a remarkable job in terms of keeping the university looking as it is right now, under severe constraints. And that is a, is an issue, that is an area that is something has been affecting them for a very long are well paid. If they're well paid, they'll be satisfied. I guess they can come. The transportation needs are pretty minimal. They come from different parts of the country: East Bank, West Coast, West Bank, East Coast, some from as far as Mahaica, and it is not easy for them to get to work. And many times a day, the issues with public transportation will always affect them. But they get there. They do a human job, but generally what they do is not appreciated. It is not demonstrated by the administration of the university that this group of staff are very well appreciated. Whatever happens, it happens across the board. And when we are considering the developments at the university, we consider it at every single level. Every single staff, which includes students also, are stakeholders. The students are primarily major stakeholders, but ultimately they also rely on those faceless persons to do some very simple and mundane things to make their lives on the university campus comfortable.
Okay, but the last time the university was here, Dr. Eiffel and Dr. Francis, the contention was that, you know, students should pay more. If they don't pay more, then you would not have money to, you know, engage in the kind of development that the university would need. But now Dr. Singh is saying that money is there. You were also saying that money would have come in. What is preventing the forward movement in terms of better conditions for staff
Well, money came from two sources. One source in terms of the students' fees would be the well, there was an adjustment in the fee structure, so they were paying more. But they were also paying a facilities fee. Yeah, that's the fee. The facilities fee. Now, the facilities fee is specifically to address the concerns and the needs of the learning environment, so the classrooms, so that they're not hot, students are not, fainting, vomiting, the, projectors, whiteboards, etc., etc. Now, the facilities fee was and is $50,000 per year per student. And so the question is, where has this money gone? How has it been spent? And why are we not seeing, any kind of benefits in terms of the teaching environment, and the environment for students from this particular source? Additionally, there was a fairly minimal increase in terms of the tuition fee, and as Dr. Singh pointed, that amounted to something over $270 million. Again, where is this money going? I think one of the areas it's going in is that the senior administration, senior administrative staff, that section has been ballooning.
Absolutely.
So we have a vice chancellor, we now have two DVCs, we now have a new appointed bursar, chief accountant, etc., who would have negotiated salaries that we are aware, certainly from the level of below the VC, that the tune of anywhere between 4 and possibly 15 times the amount of the most senior academic, who's a professor, who of course most of them can't match in terms of qualifications has happened is that, yes, money has been coming in, but there has been increased expenditure in the administrative arm, for administrative purposes. And interestingly, when we looked at the budget, all we saw was a line item for the executive. It hadn't been broken down like every other line item. So we could see, precisely what this money is going towards. But clearly, that senior administrative group is accounting for a significant amount of this new increase. And as Dr. Singh would have pointed out, the losers in this entire scenario are the students and the staff who really deliver the education and deliver the conditions and the services necessary for the education that the students receive.
But I'm wondering, because this seems to be I don't know if it's a West Indian problem, because you have it in cricket, you have it in football. The people who keep the institution going, the cricketers, the footballers, it seems as though the people who are the administrators believe that they must be the ones to have the hog of the resources, and those at the bottom who are responsible for keeping the thing alive, without whose service the institution will not function, that they must be the ones getting the pittance. What kind of I don't know, how do you explain that kind of thing?
I have a sense, but Melissa is more a historian than I am. But the way I look at it is that it probably is a West Indian phenomenon in which the bureaucratic level, the high management level, essentially lorded it over the lower levels of the employees, and had worked well for a long time. But perhaps thanks to globalization and the effect of the internet and so forth, people are becoming more aware and more exposed. In Gaisuko, for example, the king kata, someone we respect tremendously, not, is now fully aware that he or she could go to work in the islands and doesn't have to be working in the sun, doing a back-breaking job without even thank you very much for management. Management in so many of our institutions in Guyana and the Caribbean um, has not evolved. At the University of Guyana, I sometimes, and I've said this publicly by in electronic email, I've said it that it seems as if the vice chancellor subscribes to a rather old school of management known as scientific management. I think the name is Frederick Taylor, who would have written in the 1930s probably, and whose work applies more to environments such as KFC, where there are routine tasks performed, where people can be monitored easily, where the manager can be the policeman and the bad cop. But people have changed, and maybe our institutions are suffering because the management level, the higher level management still subscribes to a view and a management model that is no longer sensible in our environment.
No, that's
That's one way of looking at things.
one way of looking at it. But you know, one of the things that bothers me is the whole question of management seems to be a problem. And since Professor Day would have come to the institution, we've had a lot of complaints, all right, in terms of his style is attempt at seeming to wrest control only to himself and to a small clique, and seeming to relegate people of your stature and so on to mere minions within the institution. Now, how does that work? Do academics count? Does your years of study, your credentials, do these things matter? In the framework of the institution.
It doesn't appear that way. And I think it's so unfortunate. Certainly, we get some amount of lip service. We have heard from the vice chancellor that he was appalled when he first came to the university and he saw what staff members, what their salaries were, and he was shocked, and it's something that he absolutely must change under his tenure. He has been here. He has been here 2 years now, and many things have changed under his tenure, including our statutes giving the office of the vice chancellor excessive powers. But certainly that hasn't been one that has changed in terms of, properly paying staff. But I don't want this to be seen as simply an issue of the staff wanting more money. The issue is a human resource problem, and the university has been troubled by this human resource crisis unable to attract and maintain the high quality of staff that it needs to provide the quality of education to the students on a continuous, consistent basis, to provide the level of research that is necessary for national development, innovation, and research. And so, when we talk about the fact that you need to increase and improve the salaries, apart from the fact that we're underpaid, you know, we also need to address the issue of how do we adequately staff the University of Guyana so that the students, when they come out, we don't hear that the students can do this, they can do that, they can do the other, but the students, you know, are well equipped, and the only way the students will be well equipped is if you have a well equipped staff, academic and teaching staff. That's the only way you're gonna do. And the turnover at the University of Guyana is so extraordinarily high because, you know, it's not that people don't want to teach and instruct and impart knowledge to the next generation, but after a while, you know, they recognize that, look, this nothing is changing. I need to ensure that you know, my family is well taken care of, etc. And they leave. For the younger members of staff, you know, they want to quote unquote progress. They want, they have their own ambitions. They have their own agendas for their lives, and clearly the university can't, or to date has not been providing the same. People have found themselves in a situation, for instance, where, I mean, staff members will tell you, particularly the UB level, I mean, they come in and they work for $36,000. Now that is barely above the threshold of the minimum wage in this country. And I wonder, frankly, basis, I was talking to a member of staff. Um, she's one of the maid cleaners, and I saw her by next door to a friend one day, and she said, Miss, you see how far I have to walk from to come to walk from to go to work, and I have to do it every day back and forth, and I mean it was way past pleasant. And I was shocked, but then I thought about how much she's working for, 20,000, 25,000, you know, even less than the minimum wage. How could she take transportation to get to work? And it is appalling. It is appalling that this is the university, and this is the way we're treating the human resources at the university. We teach this. We teach management. We teach marketing. We teach HR. We teach, public admin, and this is how you treat your staff.
Public relations,
You know, clearly something is
problem is that our senior administration is a very well paid senior administration, but when there are management and administrative failures of the scale such as the one we're now encountering, those people who occupy the offices, the vice chancellor and his deputy vice chancellors, bear no cost. They can walk away when they fail. Of course, while demanding of us that we must perform. But when one has an incentive structure where failure is not associated with the cost for those who trigger the failures, we'll have a problem. Of course, we know at the level of the council is at that governance level. The council is not accountable. But what has changed, as you asked, what has changed? What has changed is the executive of the university are earning super salaries right now, and there is no accountability, there is no cost incurred to them, there is no penalty when they fail. failure by the university management.
Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
in my time at the university, there were efforts to relieve the burdens of, well, staff like you mentioned. They had a bus service and all of these things. What obtains right now?
Presently, the the staff, at least when they coming, they use the private transportation or public transportation, I should say, which drops them off at a particular point, and they have to pay. There is a sharp drop taxi service that brings them into the campus. And when they are leaving, if they are going forward into town, there is a UG bus transportation set up that will take them beyond a certain time, especially when we are at low peak. Students are not there, just the staff are circulating. Maybe they have a few courses that are being run. There are no buses in there. There was an arrangement between the minibus union, United minibus union, which would have allowed for staff after 4:30 to be taken to their specific locations in the evening. That has not worked out at this moment in time. There is a bus which the university had acquired, and which is not being put very good use. It could be used to take the same staff home in the evenings. It can work between 4:30 to 7 because most would be off the road by then. Sometimes they leave university campus, they go in town, and there's madness in town. They don't home. So it is there's stress coming and there's stress going. But we haven't basically gotten anything coming out from the university administration which says, look, we understand and appreciate what you are doing. We will be doing alleviating some of these issues that you face. So we are going to provide that facility. And prior to the acquisition of this new bus, the university years gone by had a transportation system which used to pick this stuff up, drop them at the door, take them back home. But somehow or the other, when it comes to maintaining assets, we seem to have not very record in that. So that was scrap. And when that was scrap, the staff were given what you can refer to as a transportation assistance. And it was peg based on the existing transportation fares to different points. But you would have recognized that even though today there has been a reduction in gasoline price, it has not been a reduction in fares. But if you want to consider public transportation, it is not only gasoline, it is spare parts, and there are so many other things that are attached to it. And if you really want to do a serious budget for anyone who is doing public transportation, maybe the cost for taking people from various points may go up instead of right now going down.
May I take up from something that Bruce mentioned about the lack of appreciation? Management theory, management science recognizes that it's important if one wants to truly motivate to make staff feel as if they matter, as if they're appreciated. What we get from our from the current administration, the current senior management of the university and the council, is that we, the faculty, the UB staff, the students are contemptible, that we're a pack of thieves, and that if we're not carefully monitored, we shall carry away the university, every door, every fan that isn't working. So we're being treated as if we're contemptible, we're being treated as if we're potential thieves, and at no stage has any one of them in that highest, the upper levels of the hierarchy said to us, "Oh, thank you very much. This has been an amazing job that you've been doing." Now, there is absolutely no appreciation for what we do, and yet, in something known as a workload policy, we're being asked to do more even. That's even beside the fact that we have an environment that gives us no sense of dignity. We have an environment that says to us that we are we're people who deserve no better. And naturally, we respond to that environment. Many of us, because we are trained to do so, we rise above that. But I can imagine the average person saying to himself or herself, in the presence of a classroom that's dirty, and students as well, a very dirty whiteboard, an apology for a whiteboard, no markers, no chalk, no anything, stray dogs everywhere. I can imagine that the general feeling among staff might be at a certain time that we've had enough. We actually do matter. We are people, we are human beings.
And I want to make this very, very clear. Um, Frankly, it is the staff of the University of Guyana. It is the teachers, the lecturers, the other support UB staff. We have kept that university alive. We are the ones who put our own resources. We are the ones who take our own laptops that we buy or pay for with our own money. We buy projectors, even though the university should have these provided. Dr. Francis would have indicated she took her water tank. Her department needed one. She bought one and she took it. We have kept that university alive. We are not well paid, but I will have a class, and I know that some students can't come. The time the class was scheduled for, and I will set another time in the morning or in the evening when they can come, and I will do extra hours just so that I can assist those students. That's what we do. And the reality is that when we do all of this and you get the sense from the senior administrative group, who frankly I don't see them walking up and down around this campus to see what's going on. When you get the sense from them that you are not making any positive contribution and you are to teach more and you are to work more, there's absolutely going to be a resistance to that, because we're the ones that have kept that university alive. These administrators who just came within the last year and two, and who now come to presume that they know how this university or how a university quote unquote should work and or function, and treat us with contempt. We reject that. They don't know how to work, and the sacrifices that we have put into that university. We have professors who have stayed there for decades, working for pittance so they could, help to educate the next generation. And it's outrageous that these administrators, in particular the vice chancellor, would want to come and cast aspersions on us, suggesting in so many different ways that we don't work, and that we don't work hard enough, and that he needs to impose more work upon us, so we don't deserve more money unless we work more. It is outrageous, and we will not stand for it.
I think what was about to add is that we've had sustaining UG is a battered woman, battered person, psyche among the staff. We've been taking more, but something has happened, and for this we need to thank the vice chancellor. Something has happened, and we're no longer a battered people. A light bulb was, there's been an epiphany, and we're saying enough.
But why is it that we're taking so long? In 1992, and so on, we had Lindsay, Harry, we had the university, the student movement was vibrant. You had people who would protest. I mean, we had clashes. We marched on campus. Lecturers, I don't know. We as a people have been taking so much. What is preventing us from really standing up for what
Well, I can tell you,
we deserve?
and I can tell you right now what's happening on the campus is amazing. I have never seen it before in terms of the sheer resistance coming from the staff to the imposition from the senior administrative group, and in particular the vice chancellor, and in addition to the council. I mean, the resistance is astounding. I have not actually met any one lecturer, any one staff who has indicated clearly or positively that, I'm not in support of what is happening. We, the members of the executive, I must confess, we are also a little bit surprised at the level of resistance, and even in the face of all kinds of threats, staff have insisted, no, we are not going back to work. Enough is enough. You look at the email threads, the persons, the comments coming from persons who would have never commented before, or we didn't even know what their opinions were. Now
we'd like to say, we'd like to salute our students as well.
Oh yes.
And the students have not been going to classes probably because they're paying a higher tuition fee and the facilities fee. So again, thank you, Vice Chancellor and Council. But the students are now aware that so they've had an epiphany as well, and for them, they're not taking it any longer. They're not going into those dirty classrooms any longer.
So what is this new workload that we're talking about? We hear about teaching four courses, and I mean we know that part of the academia is research, sabbatical and being able to produce. The University of Guyana has always been, ridiculed for not having productive lecturers. And now the VC is saying that you need a heavier workload to lecture at least 4 courses. Some of these courses carry 100 and something students and all of these things. How are you going to make out in that regard?
Might I have a first bite at it, please? Because I read the document just before coming here, and I'd like to say, to begin with, it is not a policy document. It is not a policy document because it gets down to very specifics, to very specific things like 4 courses and that sort of thing. I've looked at all the workload policy documents, and those documents never get down to that level of detail. That's number one. Number two, traditional lecturers don't work. There is a fundamental between workers and staff, if you, and management, if you will. There's a fundamental problem known as the agency problem, where the management cannot quite observe the level of effort expended by workers. It's not just the University of Guyana, it's in every environment, every workplace. The people who employ and pay the staff cannot ascertain exactly how much effort is being expended. That is a fundamental problem, and sadly, because our management, senior management, the vice chancellor and his cohorts haven't a clue about management science and modern management, they've decided to use a very blunt instrument to address this well-known problem, the agency problem. Now, had they known, clearly they don't, there are other modern tools available to address this agency problem. So those are the two things that I'd like to see. First of all, it's not a policy document, and secondly, it's a pretty, it's one that reflects a very poor understanding and a lack of understanding of modern management.
But it's because we have to understand where it stems from. Now, the vice chancellor, when he was initially interviewed for the position of that he currently holds as VC, one of the things that he boasted about was that he was going to bring university money to the university, and it was, I think, in large part what sold him to the members of the council, that they felt, look, here you have an individual who will clearly be able to, produce in a very real, way. But unfortunately, the vice chancellor's only plan appears to be
increasing
increasing fees, but two, cutting back on expenditure and his expenditure that he wants to cut back on is staff. He wants to cut back on the number of staff so as to, you know, free up some money. He's been trying vigorously to unearth corruption in the university structure, and thus far he hasn't been able to. But notwithstanding that fact, he has taken control over the entire financial apparatus at the university, and that is very, very troubling to us as academics. We know we prefer a structure that is divorced from the management, the structure that isn't responsive to any one individual, and of course that's not what we have right now. But essentially it stems from his desire to balance the university's budget, and so he feels if he can impose more teaching hours on staff, then, you know, it cuts down on the number of staff who are actually employed, and so he will be able to save some money and help him to balance the budget. But it is completely divorced from the quality of education that will be received by the students. And I tell students all the time, I say, I have taught what the workload policy is proposing since I entered that university, and I could do so because the nature of my courses means that I don't have to be in the labs for 10, 12, sometimes 5, 6 hours. I don't have to take students into the farm, into the fields, and be out there all day. But if you impose upon a staff member who, out of his or her concern to ensure that the student has an effective and proper education, goes and works with them in the field, in addition to the teaching component. And if you impose this, what is going to happen is that they're probably unfortunately, the practical elements where staff members go use their time, their own resources, that practical element, I can assure you will probably go. And what happens, the education that the students receive will be poorer. You impose more work upon staff. What happens? The criticism of the university that we don't produce enough in terms of research, that of course is going to escalate, because if your teaching load is extraordinarily heavy, then there are implications for your ability to conduct research. And so there are all kinds of implications in terms of the quality that comes out of the university. But the VC doesn't seem to be concerned about that.
There's something that students probably don't know, and it's that the new workload policy is offering either for us to teach 4 courses for 3 credit hour courses, or 3 4 credit hour courses, and the deputy vice chancellor, academic affairs, is leading a process of eliminating all 4 credit courses from the university. It's under the rubric of harmonizing credits. But the idea is to have all courses cut to 3 credits, short-changing students, and making people teach 4 of those courses. I'm sure that the deputy vice chancellor, academic affairs herself has not taught, or she'd have known how very difficult it is to teach 4 courses.
Alright. Just let me say that if anybody wants to make a contribution, you can call and we'll take a contribution. And yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
The number is on the screen.
In addition to that, we have to recognize that our contracts state that there will be no changes to our conditions of service, meaning the number of hours we teach, etc. members to allow the vice chancellor to impose any additional courses on us without consultation and without negotiation. We refuse.
Okay, we have yes,
But there's one other element that, that I think needs to be addressed as part of this cost cutting. I have had the
just hold on. And this somebody's yeah, go ahead.
just had the opportunity because most of what the vice chancellor would be proposing is basically directed by the personal officer in terms of the research that he does, information he gives to the vice chancellor. We're looking at contract, the length of the contract, and the cost to the university. They say you have a 2-semester program, but staff are being paid for 1 year. So you have a 3-month period where staff are not doing anything.
No. No.
And,
No.
and therefore you have to interject something into the system to bring it in line with what you pay. That was one of the things that was interjected in
But
the
that demonstrates a fundamental, lack of knowledge on the part of our administrators, because as an academic, as a lecturer, it is my job to ensure that the information that I impart to the students, I update it. I have a whole series of lecture topics that I have to ensure that I'm aware of current knowledge, that I'm aware of current strategies, that I improve my teaching strategies, that I conduct research so that it aids and assists me in teaching. So this notion that when I am not teaching during this quote 3-month period, I'm sitting home doing nothing, is a false one, and it's one that, as I said, comes from a fundamental lack of understanding
Yeah, but what
of
makes
what
our,
happens
our
to
university
university.
different from the other?
But that's the point. It comes, that's what I'm saying. That thinking stems from a fundamental lack of understanding of what happens within a university structure. What an academic or who an academic is supposed to be and what he or she is supposed to do. And you know, I mean, we know the PO who seems like a very nice man is from the guy Suku from the sugar industry, and I always say to him all the time, you need to understand what happens within an academic environment. We not sugar workers, you know, out in the fields that you could treat as though we are expendable.
So, as I've said, the sugar workers,
Yeah.
thankfully, they become smart and they now know they could work in the islands. And that's one of the risks that was not contemplated when the major investment was made in Skelland. I've told the Vice Chancellor that we mentioned that the Vice Chancellor is keen on a cost-cutting agenda. I just wanted to share that in my view, his cost-cutting is being done with an eye on the past. And I told him that if he really wants to engage in cost-cutting, it must be cost-cutting with an eye on the future. Give you an example. He dismantled a laboratory in which I was conducting and I configured to do economics experiments. This was funded by the World Bank, incidentally. But this is amazing. It's the first time in the Caribbean that economics experiments are being done. The Vice Chancellor dismantled that laboratory, and I was not even told. I heard about it after the fact. His cost cutting is with an eye on the past and not on the future.
Okay, well, I'm told that we have 2 minutes more. I maybe we can. What are your final?
Well, I would just like the to encourage our students we appreciate the support that they had given, that they have given to us thus far, and we commit ourselves to ensuring that the education they receive is the one that they deserve, on the conditions where we are, of course, satisfied and comfortable.
Yeah. For the your workers, how do you see the future?
Matter of fact, they are very vulnerable. Even when you have these disruptions invariably they suffer. It's not that they want to be out there, not that they want to deny the students the opportunity to learn in a comfortable environment, but they also have needs, and those needs have to be met. So we have to be a balance. So we have to look at what is what makes people comfortable and want to come to work. So therefore, if we do not treat with that, then you are going to have a very uncomfortable situation as it currently happens right now.
Dr. Singh, they, well, I don't know, in a few words, the council as part of the administrative structure of the university, is that a problem?
It has always been a problem because it's been so politicized. What bothers me right now is that it's being led by a pro-chancellor who was one of the pioneers of the extra lessons phenomenon, the one that saw education as business. And I would not be surprised if UG becomes a matter of education being mere business. What I'd like to add is that we are delighted that our tipping point, the one that's driven us to say we cannot teach in those classrooms. classrooms, and in that environment, it is not restricted to Turkine the Turkine campus, but we've understood that in teen, the recognition is also there that we've had enough.
I just as a final comment. Um, I just want to encourage staff to continue to be vigilant, continue to be strong, continue to be united. And I can assure you, once we remain united as a union, combined unions, UGSSA and UGWU, we will emerge victorious.
Well, I would like to encourage the entire country to be vigilant because I saw the Guyana Teachers Union only recently after my, being pretty mad here, not hearing anything from them coming out the other day to complain about people at the University to stand up and demand a change. And I hope that this is not political people. Well, we all are.
Yes, yes.
The great philosopher says you must live in a polis, otherwise you're a beast or a god, as Aristotle, right? Uh, so we need a change, and I hope that we can get that change. It depends upon you people, the decisions that you make. So I leave you with that, and I hope that you would have understood better what is happening at the university, and I do look forward to being with you. I want to thank you three for being here, Dr. Phil, and your colleagues, and I do look forward to your presence if you do have more issues that you want to raise. Good night. Next week, same time, same